Welcome to Golic and Smetty.
I'm Mike Golic.
I'm Jessica Smetty.
Welcome to our 1000th edition of Golic and Smetty. I'm Mike Golic Sr. She is Jess Smetana. Just tons going on in the world of sports, tons. But you said a couple of magic words to me before we started this pod that you baked something. So everything else can be put on hold. All is set aside till I know what you baked, and hopefully it did not involve fruit or a compote product of fruit.
Stop it. Of course it did.
Come on, Jess.
Mike, you're not even here. I'm not going to bend to your will when you're not even going to get a slice of what I'm making.
You know what? That's understandable.
My friends all loved it. I made on Thursday night, it's fig season, a short but sweet season for fruit. I made a fig tart. It was so good. And then I had a leftover crust, so I made a Bakewell tart on Sunday. And the Bakewell tart is something that I only know what it is because of the Great British Bake Off. It's like a layer of jam and then like a cake layer on top inside a pastry crust. And it was chef's kiss. Perfect. It was so good.
I
think you would have liked it.
Because when you say fig, I think of let you crumble up fig Newtons and put it in a pan.
So much better than that. Fig Newtons. I used to really like fig Newtons.
Oh, don't tell me you don't like fig Newtons.
They gross me out now.
Really?
Something about it, like maybe they've changed or maybe I've changed, but I don't feel the same way that I used to about them.
Do you feel your palate has changed over the years?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. I love spicy food now. I love sort of like weirder things, like more, tinned fish. I eat a lot of tinned fish now. Anchovies.
What kind of fish?
Like sardines, mackerel, like things in a tin.
Tin. I love sardines out of a tin. I love them.
Anchovies? I love anchovies.
I don't like anchovies, but I love sardines.
Okay. Would not have eaten that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So yes, certainly I think I have a more refined palate now and things. I actually was talking about this on the Levitard show the other day. Mike, did you ever have like a Chipotle phase or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I definitely, you live in South Bend most of the year. I went to school there. There's a Chipotle on Eddy Street that
yes, there is.
I spent a lot of time and money at. It is like the most, I think if you go to Notre Dame, there's like 3 places that will always be
I was going to say, where did you go the most? What are those?
It's like the Grotto,
yes,
the Golden Dome, the main building, and then Chipotle.
So you think Chipotle was the most visited because there's Five Guys, there's Blaze
Definitely.
Pizza.
Chipotle used to have a insane line out. I don't know if it still does, but if you went to Chipotle, it didn't matter what time it was, there was always an insane line out the door. You'd have to wait like 30 minutes.
All right, so I don't see that a lot. As you said, I'm here 6 months.
Well, maybe there's more options now.
Well, yeah.
But I know there's like a Portillo's there now. Things have changed.
Portillo.
In the greater
there
Michiana
is still
area.
Nothing better to me than Portillo's cake shake. How they get bits of cake into a shake, I have no idea, and it moves through the straw incredibly well. It's magic to me, but it's a beautiful thing. So I got to ask, because you do put fruit and compote in your baking. When we never got to hook up at a tailgate when you were out here for Ohio
service.
State.
Get it together, Notre Dame.
I know.
Get a cell tower.
But you said you had goodies for me. So what were they?
Mm-hmm. Those were pumpkin blondies.
Oh,
so like,
wow.
Yeah, you would have, and like chocolate chips, no fruit, just sugar. Do you like pecans or pecans in it?
I'll do. That is one thing
I think you would
I have grown on talking about changing palates. I do eat nuts more, all of them, all the different kind. Put them in my oatmeal, and I'll eat them by the handful now.
Very healthy, very good for you.
Yes, I have learned that.
My point about Chipotle that I would like to finish before we move on to more important things. I think either I've changed or Chipotle's changed, because I used to think that Chipotle was like the height of gourmet flavor, and it was so good. The quality was amazing. It tasted great. It was always fresh.
This is your 18 to 21-year-old palate, huh?
Exactly. That's exactly my point. And now I can't even fathom eating it. Like, it grosses. I think I might have also just had too much. Like, I was a diehard Chipotle eater. Like, I used to go, this was like in the era where Chipotle used to hand out those like cards to athletes where you could get free Chipotle anytime. Like, I thought that was the biggest perk in all of the world was like, you get the free Chipotle burrito card. Like, I would have preferred to have that than win Mega Millions, because it was, to me, like the height of fame was like, you can walk into Chipotle and get it for free. But I can't fathom eating Chipotle now. I went to Chipotle during their like norovirus like scandal where everyone was going there and getting norovirus. I still went. I couldn't quit it. And now I just can't imagine.
Really?
It
So you
just
don't eat it at
grosses
all
me out.
now? You don't.
And I know I'm not alone, because there was a TikTok about it, Mike, and
Oh,
TikTok validates all of my thoughts and
there
feelings.
was a TikTok
So
about it.
it's something,
Seriously?
either I've changed, Chipotle's changed, maybe we've both changed, but I've moved on.
Has maybe TikTok has changed you?
TikTok has changed me in more ways than I could count. All negative.
I was just gonna say, at the end of the day, would it be better to just delete the app and be done with it?
You know what's been happening on TikTok lately, Mike,
No,
that
I don't.
circles
Yes,
back
I
to
do
college
not.
football?
Yeah.
So this happened last year with Joe Burrow. A lot of people on TikTok started posting videos about Joe Burrow, including the NFL's own account, acknowledging that he was a good-looking, attractive man. And people posted like slow-mo videos of him. People got really, really into Joe Burrow. And a lot of people were like, wow, who is this guy? Kind of like discovering Joe Burrow
Right.
through TikTok. That has happened in the last week with Notre Dame's quarterback, Sam Hartman. I cannot go on that app without seeing 3 TikToks in a row of Sam Hartman putting his helmet on, shaking his long hair out, like putting his hand through his hair. It is everywhere, Mike.
Oh, he's sexy Jesus. I mean, that's just what he is. I mean, it's
And the internet's caught on now. I mean, it's
so
remarkable.
answer me this as we transfer into the NFL, and we could talk about Joe Burrow as we're in the quarter poll about worst teams in the league, and they're sitting at 1-3 and not playing well. But
Yeah, not
what
good.
has TikTok had to say? Because I don't know what's real and what's not with the whole Travis Kelsey Taylor Swift thing,
Mm,
from the standpoint of, because I see things on the internet that are fake of Swifties not knowing anything about football. Is that real? Is that fake? Is it they don't really know? One of the most popular things out there is these women saying to their husbands, "Oh, did you see Taylor Swift is putting Travis Kelsey on the map?" Now I know that's a joke, but how much is there of Swifties that didn't have a damn clue who Travis Kelsey is, and now they're watching football games?
that's a good question, and it's impossible to tell. I will say, and people who listen to this show maybe won't believe it, but there are more Taylor Swift fans than there are NFL fans.
And
Just
you're so right. They won't believe that, and it's so
and it's very
true.
true.
Yes,
By every metric,
yes,
more people engage in Taylor Swift than they do in the NFL. So it would not surprise me in the slightest if there's a large swath of people that are now finding out about how kind of silly and stupid the like not just the NFL, but the rules of football are, because it's a very silly sport if you're just coming to it for the first time. Like, why are there 4 downs? I don't know. Why can't 2 players be in motion? It doesn't
yeah.
matter. Just
You're
don't
right.
worry
When you
about
kind of drop down on it and tell the rules to somebody who's
that.
never seen it, they have no idea. There was one, and Sydney hooked me up on this one, saying, my daughter Sydney, talking about how Swifties who don't know football really don't know football, because one of them posted that, oh, they're not dating because Travis Kelsey and her didn't leave after the game together. And it's like,
Right.
okay, that's people who don't know football. He has to go back with his
Yeah,
team. He has to
right.
travel. It was an away game. He has to go back with his team. He
Well,
can't just do
Urban Meyer
whatever he
didn't
wants.
do it last
Well,
year,
that's
so
true. That's true. And that
2
worked
years
out
ago.
well for him, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, famously. But no, Mike, it's a good question. I do think I will say, as a woman who has been a football fan for my entire life, some of the coverage has been very patronizing, and there's been a lot of talking down to a large swath of this fan community. And I think it's impossible to say that it's not because most of them are women or perceived to be women. I don't know exactly the demographic makeup of Swifties, but that's probably fair to say. And so it's been a little frustrating. There's also been so many people that are mad about the coverage, and especially NBC leaning all the way into it on Sunday night. That to me is just funny. Like, it's hilarious to see people get so worked up and upset about the fact that the NFL would want to capitalize on a huge superstar going to one of their games, especially one that turned them down for the NFL
Yes.
halftime show,
Yes.
reportedly. So My main takeaway from all of this, I think, is just that the NFL always wins because we're talking about the NFL in places that traditionally haven't been talking about the NFL. It's great marketing for them. I don't know if it's a real relationship or not. I kind of think it is. Last week I said I wasn't so sure about
Right,
it, but
right.
I don't I don't think that there's anything like nefarious going on other than, maybe a little fling, little
I
relationship,
agree.
and regardless of all of it, it is great for the NFL.
I am stunned, Jess, at the people who are mad about this. One thing I've learned is Mike Tirico's a Swiftie. Hilarious. I love how we played into it. To have a problem with, even though the NFL is the biggest league in the country by without question, by
Makes a
far,
ton of money.
and
Yeah.
and for them to not embrace the newness, the new fans you can get, especially on the women's side of this, would be dumb. I mean, you should lean into it. And for those, I don't even want to say they're all old people like me. They're probably younger people, even like you, that are huge
Yeah.
NFL fans that have a
Yeah.
problem with it. Man, get over it.
Get
I
over
mean,
it.
this is a chance to
Yeah.
pull in even more people, new people in here that will love the NFL until they're no longer dating, and then they'll hate the NFL, and that's fine. There's nothing.
I hate the
There's nothing.
NFL right now too
Well,
because my team sucks.
as well you should, and we are going to get to that last one I have on this, and who knows? I'm with you because I don't know where this relationship's going to go. She goes back on tour overseas, like in early November, so she has a
Mhm.
little bit of time now. The next question is, she going to go to Minnesota, where the next game is, and who knows? I hope these crazy young kids have a great time for a while. Where it goes, I have no idea. But luckily for the Jets, maybe it took the onus off of them. Though they played pretty well in
Yeah.
that game. They started out getting smoked, but then they came back and they played pretty well in that one. So Zach Wilson, for all the people saying Zach Wilson is this or is that, he had a pretty good game. Is he going to be the?
He had a really Mike, he
Yeah,
had a really good
he
game,
he he
especially,
he
like, even just not for Zach Wilson, just, like, in a vacuum.
He
I thought
actually threw the ball better
he
than,
did
than
good.
Patrick Mahomes in this game. And then
Yeah.
and then of course there are those, Mahomes and Kelsey are distracted by all the Taylor Swift stuff.
Oh my
Just
god, like, we're doing
just
the Jessica Simpson thing
let,
all
yeah,
over
let's
again.
let's just stop with that. But
Oy.
but Zach had a nice game. Took the loss on his shoulders when he fumbled the snap. But they certainly looked better than I thought they were going to look. So I don't think at the quarter pole here, I don't think they're going to be what we would consider the worst team in the league at this point. I think based off that game, they looked pretty good. So here we are. And again, it's not a complete quarter pole because the NFL went to 17 games and 4 is not a
Right.
complete, but we all understand we're at the quarter pole. So in your mind, who is the worst team in the NFL at the quarter pole?
I think there's a handful of really bad teams, but I do think the Chicago Bears organizationally are in such a bad place that it's hard to put anyone behind them. There are 3 head coaches at this very moment that I could see getting fired before we get to what would you call it? The half pole?
Yeah, the halfway
Yeah,
point,
the
the half
halfway
pole.
point. I'm just messing with
Yeah.
you. Um, and Matt Eberflus is certainly
Yep.
one of them, but I just don't think that the other really bad teams have as many existential questions as the Bears organization do. Especially considering they did get a lot of preseason hype. I think Bears fans were really excited to see if Justin Fields could, take the next step in the NFL. And right now, after blowing this game to the Broncos with some really inexplicable game management decisions in the fourth quarter, defensive collapse, offensive collapse, just all around collapse, not to mention what we talked about last week with the defensive coordinator being let go
Yeah.
for workplace issues that we still aren't sure what that was. It's just like, I hope that whoever is the Bears quarterback that they inevitably draft next year, whether it's Caleb Williams or someone else, I hope that they decide no, and they pull an Eli Manning. No, I don't want to go there. The Bears have such a bad track record with quarterbacks. I just would feel bad for whoever that person is, and that's a hard thing to say, to admit, Mike. Like, there just is very little hope.
There really is. And going into the season, I think a lot of people thought the Cardinals had the worst roster in the league. They're proving it now. They're 1-3, but they're proving to be a tough out. They're
Yeah,
playing teams well. And then people
hard to
thought,
tank.
especially with Kyler Murray being out and Josh Jobs in there, who, had trouble finding a jersey to get to send to somebody because they didn't have it in the pro shop, his jersey. But
Poor
they're a
Josh
tough
Allen.
out right now. Kyler Murray going to remain not playing. He was on the PUP list, so he had to miss the first 4. He's going to miss more than that. So you got to wonder. I think they're going to be looking for a quarterback, but that's a different situation because they paid Kyler Murray. So that's going
Yeah.
to be more of complicated to twist in and out of that one. Where in Chicago, Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles, the GM, you know what they don't have? They don't have any affiliation with Justin Fields. They didn't pick him. So
Right.
unlike
That is an interesting point though too, organizationally, because they let their previous GM pick 2 quarterbacks and then fired him. And that's usually when you clear house like that, you
Yep.
don't and you think you might let someone go or you're not sure about someone, you don't let them draft a quarterback with, your highest pick the following year. So I think that's another reason that Bears fans are really frustrated
Yeah,
with
and
this whole
I
situation.
was on the bandwagon of keeping Justin Fields. I thought he
I
was
like Justin
I
Fields.
thought he
Yeah.
was right, and but by no means is he the only problem on that team. He
No.
struggles at times, but there's a lot of people on the struggle bus on that
Yeah.
team, both on and off the field. So what's interesting is you look at like Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch out in San Francisco. That's more tough for decision makers to deal with when you make a move like they made for Trey Lance and it didn't hit, right?
Mhm.
That it's always difficult to say we were wrong. And they had to admit that, and they traded Trey Lance away. Now, what softens that blow is they made a ton of right moves to where
Yeah.
they're the best team in the NFL. I think we'll get to that.
Yes.
I think they're the best team. We have the deepest offense defense lineup in Chicago.
Special
Like I
teams.
said, they didn't bring in Justin Fields, so and he's on a rookie contract, so money's not going to be the issue if that's
Mhm.
where they want to move on. Now, again, they have way more problems than just Justin Fields, and it's going to be up to Eberflus and Luke Getsy to decide, is Justin Fields worth working with. I don't think they have Getsy and Fields are working well together, just like I don't think Matt Canada and Kenny Pickett are working well together. And I don't believe, because Fields is not their guy, that they're going to say, yeah, let's keep going with this. I think this is their 1-year experiment with it, and it's not going well for the entire team. But I have a feeling if they're in that position that they're going to go ahead and grab a quarterback.
Especially right now after losing to the Broncos, they have the top picks in the 2024 draft. So it would be hard to imagine that they wouldn't take a quarterback. As it stands now, obviously, maybe things change there. That would be hard to imagine. And to me, I didn't really grow up a Bears fan, but I grew up around a lot of Bears fans. I think the more important thing is like they've completely lost the fan base, like lost the plot. No one is happy right now. There's also, like I said, existential questions about if the Bears are going to leave Soldier Field and move to Arlington Heights, and if the fan base
Right.
is going to be happy or upset about that, and then what happens to Soldier Field. And there's just so many question marks there. And I think it's just another year in a long line of really disappointing seasons for the Bears. So, like I mentioned, there are 2 other head coaches that I think are solidly on the hot seat. One of them won this weekend, Brandon Staley, Mike.
Well,
I don't I don't know if they won in spite of him or if Josh McDaniels is just it was a both of those coaches, to me, I would be surprised to see them back
so
next year.
so I have a question to ask you. If and when Josh McDaniels, because every coach eventually ends up losing their job, except I guess if you're Mike Tomlin or John Harbaugh.
Yeah, Bill Belichick
No, I'm
even is
sorry, Bill
getting
Belichick, Andy
yeah,
Reid, although Andy Reid did lose his job in Philadelphia.
right.
I think this is Josh McDaniels' last stop as a head coach. He failed in Denver outside of a little bit of the Tebow magic that went on for a short time. And if things continue to not go well here, if he's ever relieved of his duties, whether during the year, at the end of the year, or in 5 years, who knows? I don't think he's going to get another shot at being a head coach. So here's what I want to ask you about Brandon Staley. So Mike and I had this discussion. You guys are in the analytics era right?
Mhm.
Way more
Mhm.
analytics at a front. And I get it. And listen, analytics have been around for a long time. Analytics were around when I was playing. There's just more of it now. So Mike and I had this discussion. The two times Brandon Staley went for it on 4th and 1, this past weekend and the weekend before, they didn't make it and their defense bailed them out. But
Right.
I'll say this: did the analytics say do it? And if they did, then do you blame him for doing it? The equalizer I say here is at a blackjack table. If if you have 16 and the dealer is showing 7 or higher, I hit every time. Every time, no matter what. If the dealer has what would be considered a winning hand and I have a 16, I'll hit. Others won't hit. And all I ever say is, because sometimes people will say, oh, I see you hit on 16, and they'll say, I don't hit on 16. I'm like, that's fine as long as you do it consistently. Do it
Right.
every time, because
Right.
basically your thinking is
Eventually, you
over the
have to
long
get
run,
one.
it's going to win.
Yes.
So do we blame Brandon Staley for making these 4th and 1 calls if by analytics of today that is supposedly the right move?
I blame him more for being in the situation against worse teams every single week where it comes down to them having to convert a 4th down in their own territory to ice the game, because the Chargers have had weird end of game management problems for longer than Brandon Staley's been there. Like this organization has not played a normal fourth quarter probably ever. It's like them and the Seahawks. There's always end of game shenanigans going on. So it's more frustrating to see them not be able, with Justin Herbert, who is an outstanding quarterback, not be able to figure it out on defense, not be able to have a lead where it doesn't come down to needing to do this time and time again, then it is actually making the decision. Because I think analytically speaking, it's the right
Right.
decision to go for it and be aggressive on 4th down. And I like that. I actually think that I talked about it a lot on some of the other shows that I'm on with Marcus Freeman this season, and Notre Dame's, decision making, because defensive minded head coaches tend to be more conservative,
Right. Right.
whereas you want to have the ball and control what you can do with it versus punting and giving it away. At
Right.
the end of the Duke Notre Dame game, we saw Mike Elko, another defensive minded head coach, punt the ball
Yeah.
on 4th and 6 and give Notre Dame the ball back. Notre Dame came back, marched down the field, 95-yard drive, won the game. So, like, you don't want to be the head coach that gives it away and like leaves it all up to, their defense, and you want them to make a 1st down. Like, I agree with all of that, but I think it's more frustrating that like they're constantly in this position and they don't have a 4th down play
Yeah.
that they know
Right.
will work. Like, Philadelphia's figured it out, right? They have a 100% chance of converting in situations like this now with the tush push. And we saw the Giants try to do it
Yep.
last night, and they failed. It's not, not every team can do that exact play, but if you're going to be doing this and you're going to be leaving it to your offense to convert one of these 4th downs time and time again, have a play that works, but don't let it get into that situation
That's a good
every
point.
single game.
That's a good point. So consistent in calling the 4th and 1, and also the players understand that. And I think that's a key thing where they know you're going to be going for it and don't have a problem with it. But getting yourself in that position, I understand. And by the way, I think now it's called the brotherly shove.
The brotherly shove.
Brotherly
Yes,
shove.
you're right.
And for anybody that thought, will the NFL take that away? The answer is absolutely not, because
Why should
it's good
they?
because it's a horrible play for a
Oh, come
defense. I mean,
on.
God, aiding a runner, that's a joke. That's ridiculous. But other teams, I'm just saying that because I'm a former D lineman.
I know.
Other teams can't do it. They try and line up and do it, and they can't do it. But the Eagles are so good at it. Before we
Yeah.
quickly to the other side, and I think we're going to agree on it, a couple of other bad notes. The Giants could be there at the bottom as well, losing on Monday Night Football to Seattle. Just in their 2 home games, and I called the first game when they lost 40-0 to Dallas. Their 2 home games, Dallas and Seattle, they've been outscored 64-3. Or they have given up 18 sacks and 6 turnovers. It's been brutal what's gone on. And to add insult to injury to the 2 New York teams,
Yeah.
both the Jets and the Giants, they're the only teams in the NFL to not run one offensive play this year with the lead. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, wait a minute, they each have a win. Yes, they do. One was a field goal with 19 seconds to go to put them in the lead, that it wasn't an offensive play. And the other was a punt return by the Jets in overtime
Yeah.
for the win. So neither team has run one offensive play with the lead. That is brutally bad. Brutally
Yeah.
bad.
New York sports, the Giants are terrible. The Jets are terrible. The Yankees and the Mets eliminated from the postseason. But
First and third payrolls too, and they're
right.
yeah.
But in their defense, the Liberty are going to be playing for the WNBA finals against the Las Vegas Aces starting next weekend. So at least they have one team in New York that can score, Mike.
We are going to get into that because they finally have gone to super teams in the WNBA, and you got both of them in the finals. Really quickly on the other side before we jump to college, best team, do you agree, San Francisco right now, or do you have the
No,
Eagles?
I think I saw the best team versus maybe the second worst team in week 1 when the Niners played the Steelers because
Oof.
the Niners are really good. Yeah. And that's why their entire organization gets the benefit of the doubt on the Trey Lance thing like you were
Yes,
talking about
yes,
because guess what? They still have a really good
that's
team. They
exactly
screwed it
right.
up. They screwed it up. They fixed their mistake before it cost them a ton of games, and now they're the best team in the NFL. Maybe the Eagles are like it's like a 1A, 1B situation, but they're both looking really
It
good.
would be interesting if they hit in a lot of spots, but it would have been interesting had they not hit on a 7th-round quarterback in Brock Purdy, right? Nobody expected that,
No,
but that's what you get, and obviously paying dividends for them. So that's where we are in the NFL, the quarter pole, and all caught up on Taylor Swift as
love a
well.
quarter pole.
Let's jump to the college side next. All right, Jess, on the college side of this, for those that may not know still.
There's a fly flying
Is
around my
there?
head right now. Do you see that?
I,
It's
I, I don't see it.
huge.
I see you being like
It's like
interrupted
it's
by
like the
something.
size of my big toe. All right, it's gone right
Why doesn't
now.
your dog attack and get it?
Do you see this?
Uh-huh.
Did you see that?
I did see that actually.
It's been in my house for like 3 days. No one can kill it, including my dog. I wish she would. Anyways,
Last I checked though, they don't bite,
maybe
so
I
you're
smell
gonna be
bad.
okay. Well, that could be a personal problem with you, Jeff. Okay. And another thing that we almost had to deal with as Notre Dame grads
Mm,
is holy smokes, after the tough Ohio State loss, we knew this was going to be a tough game. Duke has been playing very well. Mike Elko doing a fantastic job with Duke. He was the ACC coach of the last year, his first year with the team, and then he was undefeated and ranked going into this one. This one got a little scary, Jess. We had the lead in this
so
one, felt pretty
scary.
good about it. And then, man, in the second half, their quarterback, Riley Leonard, really took control, and their defense really started controlling our offensive line.
Yeah, wow. It was an incredible college football game. The first half, Riley Leonard looked like he was so frustrated and would rather be anywhere else. But then 2 drives in the second half put him back in the lead, and Notre Dame had to, like I said earlier, they had to go down the field, 95-yard drive. Sam Hartman converted a 4th and 16 on his feet,
Yeah.
ran for 17 yards. I'm curious what your thoughts were on. So Duke rushed 3 on the 4th and 16 play after they've been putting pressure on Hartman for most of that drive. Now my dog is. Do you see my dog looking at this fly?
Yeah, the dog
This is
needs to get the
crazy.
fly. The dog
This
needs
is
to get the fly.
crazy. Okay, anyways, people are really mad at Mike Elko for not, and asking him after the game, should you put more pressure? Should you have blitzed, etc. Curious what you thought about that. It was the moment of the game, the 4th and 16 conversion.
I am always one, Jess, that does not like a 3-man rush, but I can see the argument for it, right? They were getting to Hartman. That's
Yeah,
why I probably would have had a normal rush or sent an extra rusher, because they were getting to Sam and he did not have a lot of time. So to force him to get rid of the ball on a 4th and 16, you knew it would probably have to be a shorter pass if you got quicker pressure, which a lot of the times you had been doing. But what happens in a 3-man drop is normally a three-man rush, I should say, is you're playing zone behind it and you're playing the sticks, right? You're saying let them catch anything short and we make the tackle in front of the sticks and it's our ball. That's kind of the safe approach, but I understand it. Now you have 8 back,
yeah.
and just kind of looking around and watching for crossers, you got people deep, watching for deep routes.
Mitchell Evans, yep.
So a lot of times when you see a quarterback run for a lot of yards, it's a lot of times because they're playing man a man coverage. And now in man coverage, the defenders a lot of times have their backs turned because they're running with the receiver that they're covering, and the quarterback has a lot of space to run.
Mhm.
You wouldn't have it in a situation that zone. You would have guys more looking at the quarterback because
Right.
they're in zone coverage. So I was surprised once he decided to run, because he did not want to run. I mean, he was
Mm-mm.
hanging around the line of scrimmage looking downfield because he is not going to kill you with his legs. He's going to beat you with his arm and his smarts. And once he took off, I thought, oh no, we waited too long. The defense is
Yeah.
going to suck up on him and be there. And then I saw him get about 10, 12 yards of it. And I thought, he's going to make it because his momentum is going further enough, or he's just going to dive and get past it. So, not a
Ooh,
fan of
yeah.
the 3-man rush, but I understand it. They just played it horribly. I mean, you got to
Yeah.
play the sticks, and they were just beyond them, which blows my mind.
I thought Hartman did a good job of not. I mean, I don't think he wanted to run, but he
No.
definitely held on to it long enough that the defense didn't start, like, cheating
Yep.
forward towards him,
Yep.
so they were behind the first
They
down mark,
were.
and still after that, like, they were not, I don't think they were in field goal range yet, or they maybe had just gotten to field goal range. They were, like, inside the 40, I wanna say. I could be wrong about that, but regardless, like, the drive wasn't over. The next play was the Audric Estime.
Yeah,
They
the
spiked it,
run.
and then Audric Estime had the 30-yard run, which pretty much effectively ended the game. But I did want to also ask you, as a defensive player, about the targeting call on Jordan Bethello,
Right.
because I haven't seen a targeting call on a defensive player using the crown of his helmet to tackle a player in the leg before. Usually you see it when it's helmet to helmet or like upper body. And I know technically like that is the, forcible contact. I get it. But isn't this something that happens a lot
Yeah,
in
this
pretty
I
much
thought
any
I thought
football
was
game?
horrible. So if you want to go by the letter, by the absolute letter, then that's the rule.
Right.
So for people to understand, he was not a defenseless runner. Okay. He was
Hmm.
running the ball. So he's not defenseless. But if you use the crown of your head at any time against defenseless, not defenseless, anybody, you can be tossed out of the game. And it doesn't even have to be in the head area. If you hit the crown, the top of your helmet at any time, you can get tossed for it. If a player is defenseless, wide receiver, quarterback looking to throw the ball, wide receiver
Hmm.
catching the ball or going to catch the ball. If you hit them if you hit them in the neck or head with any part of your body, shoulder, forearm, head, face mask, anything, you can get ejected for targeting because it's a defenseless person. So this one
Hmm.
wasn't defenseless, but it was the crown of the helmet, but it was on the guy's hip. I blew my mind.
It
Cannot
just
believe. I mean,
it happens
you go
a
to
lot in a game,
yes, you go
right?
to replay
Yes.
and you watch this and you say, you gotta look at intent as well. I think so, but they literally went by the letter of the law on that one,
It
and
bothered me.
tossed it. Oh, I thought it was a horrible. Not,
It bothered
dude's
me.
got to
But
miss the first half of this game, this
yeah,
next
it's well,
game.
that's also stupid.
Horror. I thought it was a horror. I hate the rule. I hate the ejection rule anyway. Let
Same.
alone giving
I'm glad we
15
agree.
yards. Yeah, I thought it was a horrific call. But by the letter of the call, if they felt he hit with the crown of his helmet, then they,
Right.
they can do exactly what they did. But Notre Dame gets out with the win. Now they have another ranked opponent in Louisville this weekend, another night game, and then the following week it'll be a ranked and probably undefeated USC team again
Yeah.
at night. They will have faced just 4 if USC stays undefeated, which I believe they will. I didn't see who they were playing
I
this
think
week.
Arizona?
So I think everybody expects them to stay undefeated as I try and find that USC. Yeah, they play Arizona. So I would expect them to stay undefeated. Notre Dame would play 4 from Ohio State, Duke, Louisville, USC, 4 undefeated teams, 4 ranked teams, and 4 games at night all in a row. That's one hell of a stretch coming up for them.
Yeah, and I do want to shout out Notre Dame's media team and their football. If you go to their ND football handle on Instagram or Twitter, they posted a recap
Yes,
video using the
very good.
coach's headset
Yes,
audio. I don't think I've ever seen that
no.
before, and from any team anywhere. Usually, that I think that audio gets like burned after the game.
But I'm with you.
uh,
I thought it was great.
it was awesome. A profound lack of profanities, which tells you, they probably had to edit
Edit a
some
little
things
bit, yeah.
out of that final drive, but it's an awesome
To
video. People
your
should check that
point,
out.
to your point about a defensive coach and his thought process, after Sam Hartman ran for that first down, you heard in the
Yeah.
headsets, "Do you want to throw it or run it?" Right? And they were at
Yeah.
Parker,
And
the
Marcus
OC,
said, "Hand it off."
and he did. He was like, "Okay, we're gonna probably play it safe here, hand it off
Yep.
in field goal range, kick a field
Get
goal to win
center
the
it,
game."
like, get it. Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
So that was kind of the safe approach, and Audric Estime breaks it and runs for the touchdown. So worked out
I
pretty
I
well.
I think Marcus Freeman is a brilliant coach, but I do think Audric Estime bailed him out a little
Yes.
bit
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
because I did not have a ton of faith in Notre Dame's kicker to make that kick. Missed one earlier in the game. He's got a huge leg, but like
He was like
maybe
4
too
for 9, Jess.
maybe
I think
too huge of a
yeah.
leg. Like
I think he's 4 for 9. Both these kickers missed. The Duke kicker missed twice.
yeah,
Our guy missed once. So yeah, I wasn't
I
all
would I would have
excited
been
about
really
yeah,
nervous.
about putting it on someone's leg right there. So
But shout out to Audric Estime.
yep,
Don't have to think about the hypotheticals because he just took it to the house and they won the
agreed.
game. But terrible way to lose if you're Duke. And I empathize because it's kind of how Notre Dame lost to Ohio State minus the 10 men on the field situation that we talked about last week. But like getting your heart ripped out, not a great feeling on the final drive of a game. But I think Duke will be fine. I know Riley Leonard, his injury that he got in the last play doesn't look to be season ending. They've got a lot of tough ACC
Yeah.
opponents coming up, but
That's the problem though,
their
Jess.
defense was really good, Mike.
That's the problem and the shame that Riley Leonard, their quarterback, got hurt at the end of the game because remember Notre Dame's rest of their schools or rest of their athletic programs are in the ACC. Football is not. So that was not an ACC loss. They're still good in the ACC,
Yeah, they beat Clemson.
but they're not
Yeah,
going to have Riley Leonard for a few weeks. So that's going to
yeah.
crush them. So that's a shame for them that they lost him because he really was he was doing everything for them. You look at the week of college football. Georgia has not been looking great.
No,
They get by Auburn thanks to Brock Bowers. They're all everything
he's
tight
so
end.
good. Yeah.
They have Kentucky this weekend. This is a game my son Mike's calling in Athens. Kentucky gets a big win over Florida. Kentucky is undefeated. Kentucky is ranked. I'm wondering what kind of game Kentucky may give Georgia because I think, Jess, we're kind of looking at the top level here of the top teams of Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State as really good teams, but no one where you go, okay, that team, I mean, it is going to take everything in the world to beat them. I don't think we have that right now this year.
Well, I think so. Kentucky's whole game against Florida was the ground game, right? Like Ray Davis had 3 touchdowns, 280 yards for Kentucky. So, like, if you're Georgia and you can temper the run, and make Kentucky have to throw the ball a lot, I don't know. I'm very intrigued by this game. Don't get me wrong, because like you said, Georgia has not been dominant this year like they were. They still have a 22 game win streak, but
Right.
I'm intrigued by it. But that is Kentucky's game. That is how they dismantled Florida and embarrassed Florida, honestly, the entire game, just running the ball
Yeah.
down their throats. When it comes to Michigan, it's impossible to say how
No
good
idea.
Michigan is because their schedule has been so easy,
Yep.
and they're not going to have to play a top team until like November, I think, when they play Penn State,
Yeah.
and then they have Ohio State, obviously, and then if they win those, they'll play in the Big Ten championship. So the back end of their schedule will get
Right.
tougher, sure, but it's impossible to really say like, oh, like they're tried and tested. Like a lot of the other teams, like Ohio State, you can say they survived the Notre
Right.
Dame game. That's a top 10 win for them. You definitely feel better about them than you did the first 4 games when they were beating Indiana and Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
But like Michigan, just like they can't keep getting away with this, Mike. I am just dumbfounded by the scheduling here, the non-conference scheduling.
It is. I mean, so you're right. Until they go Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State in those 3 games that they have. So we're not sure about them. Texas, are we sure about? They're undefeated. They have Oklahoma, the Red River Shootout, which goes away from the Big 12 and goes to the SEC after this team, with both these teams leaving.
I'm really intrigued by this Texas. I mean, they're both good teams, and Texas has the win on the road against Alabama that absolutely sets them apart. But
nobody, just like we thought Georgia the last 2 years, like it's going to take a Herculean effort to beat a Georgia team. I don't have that feeling of anybody this year. Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame and them had a great game. Florida State, my God, I mean, just squeaking by in some of the games they're
Yeah,
squeaking on. Penn State was losing to Northwestern for a bit before they took care of business.
backdoor
Washington
cover.
intrigues me, though, with Penix Jr., the quarterback. Oregon intrigues me. And these
Yeah.
Pac 12 teams are going to start beating each other up when they start facing one another. That, to me, is going to be real interesting. But I wish this was a year I kind of wish we were at the 12 team, because
Oh,
I think there's a
definitely.
number of teams that could win the title where it's not just the normal 2 or 3 at the top and hope somebody can beat them. I think it can be a little more open this year.
I kind of agree and I kind of disagree. I agree in that, like, I'm not 100% sure, like I was coming into the season, that Georgia is going to blow everyone away and win every single game like I was last year. I could see them stumbling a little bit, especially after this Auburn game where they were really, really challenged until, the last drive of the game. But I will say, I think like the next 3 weeks are the most important weeks in college football. Now that you have more, not more in conference games, like
Yes.
Oregon, for example, they've been scoring a billion points, 81 points, 38 points, 55 points,
Yep.
44 points, 44 points. Now they play 3 ranked Pac 12 teams in a row. They're playing Washington
Oh,
next weekend after their bye week. So, like, these next 3 weeks, I think really determine a lot in terms of who actually stands out. I think this last weekend, I probably would have told you, yeah, USC's offense looks unstoppable and they're really good. They let Colorado come back into that game and had to survive an onside kick attempt to win, despite having, I think, a 3 touchdown lead at one point. So I'm really concerned about their defense. It's going to be interesting when they play Notre Dame in a couple weeks, how they stack up against Notre Dame. But I think every season is the same thing. We're like, I don't know, like couple teams shaky, this and that. It's college football.
yep.
There's no preseason. You do tend to see more mistakes earlier in the year until teams kind of really put it together or don't, and then play the rest of their, conference schedules. And then that's when you can tell, okay, Georgia is legit, or Michigan is legit, Ohio State is legit. So I'm very intrigued by the next couple weeks here.
17 undefeated teams in the AP top 25. The first 9 are all undefeated, going 1-9. The first one-loss team showing up is Notre Dame at 10. So I'm with you. The next few weeks, and especially we look at the Pac-12, which beats each other up usually we all keep thinking there's 1 or
Yeah.
2 teams, and then all of a sudden they end up with 1 or
Utah
2
Utah
losses.
already lost.
They
Yeah,
did.
Utah already lost this weekend
Already did
and
their
not looking
Utah.
great
Yeah,
without Cam
yeah,
Rising. Yeah.
yeah, without Cam Rising, it's exactly right. So we'll see. It's getting very exciting. I think it's more open than it's been in a while, but time will tell on that. Coming up next, we have the start of one season, the kind of the introductory press conferences, and we have 2 super teams matched up, ready to go. We talk about that next. All right, Jess, let's talk pro basketball. Start quickly in the NBA as the teams are getting together, doing their introductory press conferences. Nikola Jokic, I thought, was pretty interesting that he had no idea who Deion Sanders was. He was in Serbia all off season. Jamal Murray and some of the other teammates were talking about, or the other guys that were talking about going to a Colorado game. Then they asked Nikolai about it and about Deion Sanders, and he's just like, nope. he,
Yep.
he had no
This
idea.
kind of brings us back to the Taylor Swift conversation. Like, it's so easy to tune out things that you don't pay attention to. I mean, even though, he plays in Colorado, obviously, which is, I assume, why they're asking him about it.
Yes,
Not everyone is in the same, like, little bubbles as we are as
exactly.
sports
Yeah,
fans, especially like NBA athletes. Not surprised he doesn't know anything about
without a doubt.
a guy who played for the Cowboys like 20 years ago.
Plus, he's a guy who
Or
lives out of the country in the off season. He's
yeah,
in Serbia
right.
with his family and his horses, so he has no idea about it. Between that and then obviously, when is James Harden going to show up, and how's he going to screw up the 76ers this year? We got plenty.
I thought Jimmy Butler had a great bit at Heat Media Day with his.
Not going to lie,
hair.
never heard of emo genre of music in my life. Never.
You're missing out on being a teen in 2009.
Yes,
Let
yes.
me tell you that.
I wish I was a teen in 2009 rather than being 60, Jess, okay?
Just talk to Gojo about it.
I did, and I was properly put in my place, and I deserved it. I deserved it, but I love the way he comes out and does his thing at the beginning of the season. But Jess, let's touch on now what's going on. We're in the WNBA finals, and there are two super teams. It's kind of like the NBA. The WNBA did it with the Liberty and the Aces, and you want it to come to fruition, and it did with the two best teams. One with the best player, Brianna Stewart, winning another WNBA MVP award. And the thing that blows my mind is they played 5 times this year, 4 times in the regular season, 1 time in the Commissioner Cup final. Home team won each time in those 4 they played in the regular season, and they were blowouts. I think the average win was like 19 points. It's like, I can't get a handle on what I think the series is going to be.
I need someone more of a like basketball X's and O's person to tell me that as well, Mike. But I will say, from a narrative perspective, this is the matchup that I think the season has been building towards all year. Like you said, both teams making huge offseason moves. Brianna Stewart going to Liberty in free agency. She's obviously from like New York and played in Connecticut, so kind of her going back home in a sense. And then the Aces getting Candace Parker, who got hurt
Right.
earlier this summer, so she will not be playing. But like you said, Brianna Stewart MVP, Jonquil Jones on the Liberty, former MVP, Asia Wilson on the Aces MVP. Like it's just both teams are absolutely stacked. This is also the first time that 2 former WNBA players are head coaches playing against each other in the finals, which I think is really cool. And Vegas, of course, is trying to repeat. They won it last year against the Sun in the finals. And the Liberty haven't played in a final, I think, since like 2002 or
Becky
something
Hammond
like
was on the
that.
team. Becky Hammond was on the
Yeah.
Liberty. She was a
So
guard.
it's been a while. And you know, like you said, they both played in the regular season. They played in the Commissioner's Cup final, which the Liberty won, which is like an in-season tournament. That's pretty fun. So I'm excited for it. I don't know what to expect either, but I do know, like, if you're a fan of basketball or just like great games, the finals last year were unbelievably fun, and I am fully expecting this. Like, it's going to be every game I think will be a great game. It's going to be really fun to watch, and I'm very excited for
The
it.
matchup, last 2 MVPs, right? Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson. I mean,
Yep.
I don't know what to expect here. I really don't. Again, because you had blowouts in the regular season. It's the best, and the home teams won. And remember, the Aces have home court because they're the number 1 seed. So this starts out
Mhm.
in Vegas. So that's certainly
I think I'm rooting for the Aces because of Jackie Young, but also
right.
like I guess I lived in New York for 6 years, and New York kind of needs one right now. So maybe I'll root for I don't know, Mike. I don't know.
I
I just hope everyone has fun.
See, this is one of those, I don't have a dog in the race, so I'm just going to hope I'm going to hope it goes all 5, quite honestly. And I
Yeah,
hope they're not
me
blowouts. I
too.
hope they're really good games. That's what I always hope for in sports that have series in them. You know, hockey,
Mhm.
baseball, basketball, is you get a good series. You know you're going to get a blowout here and there. And there's so many stars on this team. The other thing that's always cool to me, Jess, in series championships is that person that you don't know as well that steps up and steps out. You know,
Yeah.
you expect the stars to carry, but there's always that person who you didn't really know, and you're like, wow, that person really contributed in this series or in this game. And that can be the difference sometimes.
I don't even know like who that could be though in this, because I think like all of the players
Are
on
so
both teams are
known.
so
I know.
freaking good. And like a lot of them have won championships before. So that's I don't know, like I'm just excited. It's going to be fun.
If you were to bake the perfect pastry for
Mm,
this series, what would it be?
I feel like it has to be orange, like a basketball.
Pumpkin then,
Maybe
like a
like
pumpkin?
a pumpkin pie,
Yeah.
and I get one of those stencils, and it's a stencil of the WNBA logo, like with the, you know, Diana Taurasi, like with the ball,
Yeah.
and then I put the stencil on the pie, and then I put like powdered sugar over it,
Oh,
and then I make it into the logo. Mike, I might have to do
do
that.
that.
Do you have a
You
3D
know why I
printer?
loved it? Because you didn't mention any fruit at all going on
I
it.
mean, pumpkin, I guess pumpkin's a
Yeah,
squash.
it
Is
is a
that
squash.
a
And then whipped
vegetable?
cream on the top, obviously, right?
Sure,
I
I'll put
I
whipped
put
cream.
enough whipped cream on a piece of my pumpkin pie to where you do not see the piece of pumpkin pie.
That's too much whipped
No, it's
cream,
not.
I think.
No, it's not.
I had pumpkin pie for breakfast last week. I don't know how Mel
I
Kiper
was gonna
does
say,
that. I
I
felt
could do it.
terrible.
Did you really?
Way too much
I
sugar.
could do that. Mel Kiper's my leader for being able to eat pumpkin pie every day. So, all right, you get on that, take a picture of it
Mel
before you
Kiper's your
start
Taylor
eating it,
Swift.
and next time we get together, we will look at that pumpkin pie and see where we are in the
All right,
series.
I'll get on it.